the experiences from us, at the same time questioning us on these allegations. That's why we have opened up and we have invited all the nations. I think we have invited many nations to attend this seminar. Sri Lanka's experience with terrorism began in the 1970s. His Excellency, the President Mahinda Rajapaksa, assumed office in December 2005. Terrorist activities in Sri Lanka had dragged on nearly 30 years. 4 previous presidents, as well as several successive governments, comprising various political parties, had grappled with the issue without success. Over the years, a range of different approaches, including military campaigns, peace talks, and even international mediation had been tried. None had worked. With a large global financial network, highly developed offensive capabilities, and no genuine interest in peace, the LTT was a stubborn, hostile, and a formidable foe. Over the years, the LTT had grown from a small organization of armed individuals to a large, sophisticated terrorist outfit with very advanced combat capabilities. At its height, the LTT had more than 30,000 battle-hardened cadres, access to large stockpile of modern armaments, ammunition and equipment, a sophisticated naval wing, and a fledgling air wing. By 2005, the LTT controlled almost a quarter of the country's territory and approximately 2/3 of its coastline. Under the international brokered ceasefire agreement, the LTT even maintained the illusion of a state apparatus in the areas under its control. It must be understood that notwithstanding this, the LTT was one of the deadliest terrorist organizations in the world. The list of LTT's atrocities is long. Over the years, the LTT carried out ethnic cleansing in the north and east, brutally driving out the Sinhalese and Muslim civilians who lived there. They carried out countless attacks on civilians. They attacked villagers near the areas they occupied, massacring thousands. They attacked places of worship, such as the Sri Mahabodhiya and the Temple of the Tooth, the 2 most significant places of worship for Buddhists all over the world. They also carried out massacres as mosques and attacked churches. The LTT attacked vital national infrastructure, such as the international airport, the central bus stand, and the main railway stations in Colombo. They attacked economic targets, such as the central bank, the World Trade Center, oil refineries, and civilian harbors. They set off countless parcel bombs, car bombs, truck bombs, and claymore mines in populated areas, killing thousands of innocent civilians, and they perfected the tactic of suicide bombing. The LTT also carried out a vicious campaign of assassination against political targets, killing the President of Sri Lanka, the former Prime Minister of India, the Defense Minister, the Foreign Minister, several cabinet ministers, leaders of political parties, and large number of parliamentarians. These are all the hallmarks of brutal, ruthless, and unrestrained terrorist organization. The impact of the LTT's atrocities throughout Sri Lanka resulted in untold suffering for our entire population. In the areas outside the LTT's control, ordinary people's day-to-day lives were transformed by terrorism. Parents did not travel together in the same vehicle for fear of orphaning their children by getting caught in a bomb blast. School attendance dropped every time rumors spread about impending terrorist attacks. Law and order deteriorated as terrorism fostered crime and corruption. The underworld became more powerful and its members gained access to arms and ammunition from the various armed groups operating in the country at large. In brief, an entire generation grew up under a veil of fear. There was a complete disruption to civilian life in the entire nation. In the areas under LTT's dominance, life was very much worse. The LTT were no freedom fighters on behalf of a beleaguered populace. On the contrary, they were a vicious group of terrorists that kept the people in the regions they dominated under a brutal dictatorship. The LTT did not tolerate any opposition. The LTT assassinated the leaders of the other armed groups in these areas and wiped out any group members who refused to support its cause. The LTT also assassinated moderate, democratic leaders and influential public intellectuals in the Tamil community and kept the people under the dominance trapped in a state of fear. For its part, the Sri Lankan government did everything it could to maintain the supply of necessary services such as electricity, water, healthcare, and education to the people in these areas. Unfortunately, the LTT did not allow these services to be properly used. As a result, while the rest of the country developed, the areas under the LTT stagnated. This stagnation was not only economic, but also socio-political. Although the LTT claimed to maintain a police force, judicial system, and other trappings of a state apparatus during the time the ceasefire agreement was enforced, these were feeble attempts to disguise a territory under gunpoint. No one in those areas was safe, no one was free. Rescuing the hundreds of thousands of innocent Sri Lankans suffering under the fist of the LTT's brutal fascism was a key priority of the president when he was elected by the people to office in 2005. He was given a very clear mandate by the people to solve the terrorist problem once and for all and win an honorable peace for Sri Lanka. As such, he invited the LTT for direct talks and attempted to restart the stalled negotiations. Typically, the LTT responded by intensifying their campaign of provocation. They blatantly violated the ceasefire agreement then in place. They attacked key military targets, including our highest ranked personnel, and continued attacking innocent civilians. The Claymore mine set off at Kapitigollava and other attacks at various locations all around the country killed hundreds of innocent children, women, and men.